Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Kim, a licensed cosmetologist and loctician based here in Huntsville, Alabama. On this channel, I talk all things locks, traditional, micro locks, styling, repair, and that real behind the scenes salon life. Today we are diving into a topic that a lot of people overlook, and it is prepping for your micro locks and all the things that you need to do to prep before you start your micro lock journey. So if you omit to prep your hair properly, you can end up with slippage, you can end up with breakage, you can end up with just a messy start, and we don't want that. So if you're planning on starting your locks at home or you're planning on going to a professional, these tips will help you start your micro lock journey on the right foundation. So grab your notebooks and your pens or pencils, and we'll get started on all the tips that you'll need to get ready to start your micro lock journey. Well, first things first, clean hair is a must. When you're getting ready to shampoo your hair, you need to use a clarifying shampoo to remove all the buildup, to make sure you cleanse your scalp, your hair. I recommend that you shampoo your hair at a minimum of 2 times. If you see that your water is still cloudy, if you're at home, probably give it a 3rd shampoo, but we want to make sure that your hair is fully cleansed from your scalp all the way down. If you need ideas of a good shampoo, I will link one of my faves down in the description. I would suggest to use Design Essentials oatmeal, I think it's the oatmeal protein and henna. That's a good clarifying shampoo. In the video overlay, I'm using a different brand at that time. So the oatmeal protein and henna is a good option for clarifying your hair as far as the shampoo that you would need to use to get started on your micro lock journey. So the second tip would be to detangle your hair. It doesn't have to be like super detangled. You can do finger detangling, or you can use a brush, a big brush or a wide tooth comb. Normally when I start my clients on their micro lock journey, I do more so of a finger detangling, and I kind of just pull their hair out. I don't necessarily use a brush. Sometimes I do, just depending on the client's textures. But if it's like super tight and at this point we haven't put too much product on it, we don't want to do too much pulling because we don't want to avoid breakage and things like that. So the third tip would be to know the grid that you would like. With micro locks, it's a little different than sister locks. Sister locks, they have the rigid gridding pattern, and a lot of my micro lock clients do go for that sister lock aesthetic, so they don't really go for like the other type of partings. But with the micro locks, you can do bricklay, you can do diamond parts, you can do other type of partings, free parts, just pulling and starting. It's not necessarily a specific way that you must do micro locks when you're starting it. So just know what grid pattern that you like, and sit down with your loctician if you plan on getting them professionally to discuss specifics as far as the grid pattern that you want. With my clients, depending on their fullness of their hair, their texture determines the square should be. Some clients, they come in with pictures and videos of what they envision their hair to look like after their hair has locked, and that's kind of what I use to determine the size of the parting of the squares when installing micro locks. So just make sure you know exactly the size that you want based on the fullness that you desire and the aesthetic that you're looking for when starting micro locks. Another tip would be tip 4 is to trim your ends if necessary. Discuss with your loctician if that's something that you need to do. I don't necessarily trim the ends of my clients' hair when I'm starting. I just go ahead and start because I do a deep condition treatment as part of the service. So I feel like rehydrating the ends with the treatment is good enough. But if you talk to your loctician, or if you're at home and you decide to do this on your own and you feel that it is necessary, or your loctician feels that it is necessary to trim your ends, then go ahead and trim your ends, so that way you're starting with healthier locks. For me, when I started my locks, my hair was not its healthiest. I had a lot of color damage because I colored my hair black and then I wanted to go purple, so I did a lot of chemical processes to get my hair back down to a color that would show the purple, and that did a little bit of chemical damage to my hair. So when I started my locks, my hair was like a little flimsy. In that instance, you know, I could have trimmed my hair some and started like really short, but I didn't feel like it was necessary because I knew that those ends, the top part of my hair was going to grow out, and eventually, you know, like if they broke off or whatever, like it didn't matter to me. But it's all a part of your preference. Your loctician do say, hey, based on your ends, we should trim like a ½ inch to, you know, start you on the right path of your lock journey, then go ahead and do that. So another tip would be to determine how you want to start your micro locks. Some people, when they start, they don't really decipher whether they want to start with 2-strand twists, or they want to start with plaits, or they want to start with the interlocking method. Just know that there are more than one ways to start your micro locks, and to see, you know, depending on what aesthetic that you want is what you would determine to start. Because some people, when I show them like this is what the 2 strands look like when you start, this is what the plaits look like when you start, this is what the interlock version look like when you start. Some folks prefer the aesthetic of the interlock versus the twist, or the plaits versus the twist, or the twist versus the other one. So it all depends. If you have a looser curl pattern, I do not recommend starting with 2-strand twist because it will take a longer time to lock. If you have a looser curl pattern, you would want to go with the tighter method, and that would be either plaits or interlocking method. If you have tighter coils, you have a little bit more of an option as far as the 3 of those, but it all depends on the aesthetic that you're going for. For some people, with the tighter curl pattern, I do recommend the 2-strand twist because it kind of eases them into the micro lock journey a little bit easier, in my opinion. You know, you can disagree if you'd like, but you know, that's what I feel. The plait method is aesthetically almost like the interlock method, but for all of those journeys that you start, you still would maintain your hair with the interlocking process at the roots coming down. So some people that would prefer the interlock method to start their micro locks, because that way the pattern of the lock would remain the same when 4 weeks pass and they have to do a maintenance. So keep that in mind when you're getting ready to start. Do you want to start with 2 strands? Do you want to start with the plait method, or do you want to start with the interlocking method? So the last and final tip that I have for you today, tonight, or whenever you're watching this, is mindset matters. So micro locks are definitely a commitment. It is definitely also a journey, and you have to trust the process. So even with the traditional locks, you have to trust the process. And also, you know, sometimes my clients, they come in, they've been looking at videos, they've been looking at pictures, they've been looking at, and they've been on Pinterest, TikTok, all over the place, and they're fantasizing on having locks like some of the people that they're seeing, not accounting for the fact that their hair may be different as far as the volume, the length, the aesthetic, and stuff like that. So you have to, in this process, learn to accept yourself, learn to accept what God has given you, you know, what your locks are gonna do, and not necessarily compare yourself to others, and trust the process, because, you know, sometimes it'll take a year or 2 years before you start seeing the results that you like, especially if you're trying to gain length it may take up to 3 years before you start feeling yourself. So it's definitely a process. It's definitely something that you have to really, you know, learn to accept your natural hair, your natural journey. And I believe that Microlocs is definitely a happy medium for those who want the natural hair aesthetic without necessarily having like the traditional locks, to where it's, you know, you still can wear your like a afro aesthetic. You can still do different things, curls, you know. Some people, they get sew-ins. Some people, you know, I don't recommend too many quote unquote protective styles, but I do know that when you have Microlocs, you can enjoy your hair a lot in its natural state without the chemical process, without relaxers and perms and wigs and all of that, those things. One thing I do recommend is take pictures, you know, like a month in, maybe monthly, you know, take pictures of your hair. When I first cut my hair off and I was regrowing it in its natural state, one of the things that helped me was taking pictures a lot of my hair. And I'd be like, okay, you know, I would stretch it out this way, I would stretch it out that way, I would, you know, stretch it out in the back, you know, take pictures, and then time would pass and then I would do it again. And then in that way I would see the progress, because sometimes my clients would come in and they'll be like, is my hair growing? Do you see any, like, it doesn't look like it's growing, and it actually is. Or the average person's hair grows ½ an inch every month. Providing that you are on a healthy diet, you should see ½ inch. So after a full year, you should have 6 inches of growth. So just keep that in mind. You know, maybe if you want to take your picture of your hair every other month or once a month, you know, that way you can track your growth and see that you are progressing. And you know, it's really a beautiful thing. Definitely do that, so that can help you enjoy the process as you're going through it. All right, sis. So I have given you the tips that should help you start strong. So if you have found this video, So if you found this video helpful, make sure you like and comment down below, I'm ready. Subscribe for more Microloc and traditional lock content. Make sure to check the description for my full prep checklist and a few of my favorite products. There will also be information on how to book me if you're in the Huntsville area. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Enjoy your Microloc journey. And if you want to send me pics on Instagram, you can tag me. Like if you start your journey, like if you recently started your journey, you know, you can tag me on Instagram and I'll check it out. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.